We're live.
Welcome to the Combo Wombo podcast. I can't. Okay, yeah, I can hear you good. You're with
Okay.
Mr. Gimpy and Chip Mom.
What's up? What's up?
Another week. I said we had some issues here where I was if you can only hear one side but you're recording perfectly. I was like, this is like when you're just getting peppered with left jabs in the boxing world.
It's like put that hand up.
Yeah, I was like, I'll carry this whole thing on my own. I'm just gonna be peppering them with the left jabs here. There'll never be any combos off of it. You
know, for sure. Stop them in the tracks.
Hey man, Mayweather made a whole career out of it, dude.
Made a Hall of Fame career out of it, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Greatest of all time. People always. I feel like it just became popular to dive and meme on him, but I've always had the utmost respect for him. It can't it's like my uncle is because it's all Latin people.
Yeah.
And he was like, I like Mayweather, but every Cinco de Mayo he pulls out another Mexican and beats him up on us. Because every Cinco de Mayo Mayweather would have a fight, and it was always against a Latin American or from Mexico, like a Mexican.
Right.
And he would just beat their brakes off of them. But yeah, and then everybody who's who not really in the fight game and doesn't understand boxing or whatever, they'd be like,
yeah.
Oh, his fights are so boring, I hate him. I was like, are you kidding? That's the sweet science of boxing. Nothing is more frustrating than getting hit in the face and not being able to hit the dude back. And you're trying your best. These are the best fighters in the world. Trying to hit him and they can't touch him, dude. It's mind-boggling. It's like watching somebody fight in the Matrix. He's just oosh, 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 and just peppering people up, and it's the most it's like a high wire act, where you're walking a tightrope across the Grand Canyon, and that's what he did every night for whatever it was, was it 52 fights?
Yeah,
unofficial 53.
For sure. I will say, as a more casual fan, I get that Mayweather's very good at boxing. The problem is, from a casual perspective, watch the science of boxing is boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it is it's kind of in UFC when you watch two guys go to the ground game. And it's jiu-jitsu, and it's oh, look at him pass over. Oh, he's he moved over. Oh, he got an arm, and now he's countering that by moving his leg in between his other leg, just so he can't get over the proper leverage to get him into a full arm bar or something. And you're this just looks like two guys making out on the ground, dude.
For sure. I'm not saying that to these guys, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
there's two guys rolling around on the floor, and then in boxing, it's two guys hugging back and forth,
hugging and rubbing their heads on the other guy's cheek or whatever. You know,
man,
it gets real romantic.
Absolutely.
For sure. Do you remember the Fight Night games? We'll use Fight Night Round 3 is probably the pinnacle of that series. I think that game did a very, very good job of gamifying boxing to the point where you could, for those people who knew the sweet science, could actually succeed. But people such as myself who have experience in fighting games and things like that had enough. They had the parries and then the counters where it was frame specific. You had a 3-frame window, so it's block and then counter hit or whatever. It was super fun. Yeah. Definite. That was actually the only, let's say, fighting game that used the thumbstick that was actually, I felt, was the better form of playing a boxing game than using the face buttons. So, I mean, that's the last, EA big title that actually, did very well. There's no reason that EA had to, stop doing that series outside of boxing itself not being that popular now. But, really good concept.
Boxing suffered from too many organizations where, you have, 4 or 5 major organizations, and they all have belts. So you end up with people rolling out with 4 belts from every they're trying to be the unified champion. They have 5 of the 7 Dragon Balls. They have these amateur trophies they're rolling out with, and you're I don't what is going on? So they suffer from that, and then the biggest draw has always been their heavyweight boxing division, because that's where the big knockouts happen.
Yeah,
and the last couple champions have all been Russian, so
sure.
they're not very good ambassadors of the sport to casual people. The UFC will also have like that problem too, where like Khabib's like one of the best.
Yeah.
But like most people wouldn't know it just because like not very good on the microphone.
For sure. You have the right hand of God going onto your face right now. Do you want to like shut your shade or anything?
Yeah.
Or like...
This is fine.
Those of you listening, Chip has like his window is perfectly placed near his, like where his face is, so the morning sunlight is just basking him in all of its glory.
It's just God bless him indeed, down with the heaven raised.
Yeah.
Slide forward here. And then like as the day goes on, it's gonna hit me again.
Well, the thing is, like, as you were talking, like, I don't know what happened, but the sun like literally moved as you were talking to like just cover your entire face. It looks so uncomfortable.
It's all over there. It's kind of like right there.
Yeah.
This window's opened up just enough.
Got it. Perfect. So I didn't mean to stop you there.
Perfect segue.
It was too funny. Yeah, perfect segue to our sponsor. No, I'm kidding. We don't have sponsors. Come on now.
We're brought to you by the sun.
Yeah,
the center of our known universe and galaxy.
For sure. Also,
don't believe the propaganda about people trying to say it's like the Milky Way and no, it's the sun, our sun.
For sure. Does wonderful things like blinding Chip, interrupting the podcast, getting us off track, and making raisins. I can't think of anything else.
Creating life.
I mean, if you want to get technical, sure. I mean,
if you believe in that sort of thing, I
yeah, right. If you believe that plants come out of the ground
and that have energy, and we can take that energy.
Yeah, right. Fake news. Really. Yeah, plants always existed.
Fact checkers dispute these claims. How about?
All right, man. Should we get to the topic at hand?
Yeah, like, you had for like fighting games. I kind of checked out around Ready to Rumble for the Dreamcast, the Sega Dreamcast.
This was a fantastic game.
Yeah, that was like complete arcade.
Yeah, it was
style boxing, which kind of brings us, I think, perfectly into arcade shooters, which is always my favorite.
My favorite as well. I'll let you, because when we ended the pod last week, you had a lot to say about the Unreal franchise and Cliffy B. Did you want to start there? And before I asked, you had that story about the professor.
Barn door.
Yep.
Put in. Oh, there we go. It's not even related or that interesting. You're talking about like kind of like having your studio area, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start maybe possibly having like a tax write-off here because it's like a business expense. Yeah. This whole area, like you can like count out like the square footage and write that off. You can write off electricity, internet usage, and like you kind of estimate because like it's hard to like say like what you use casually and what you use for business, but like you can be like this many hours I'm like using it for business, and like you divide that over like like the 5 days a week that you'd be at an office or whatever. Yeah. So I was like at the Micro Center with the professor. We're looking at computer stuff. And he was like, oh, look at this sweet broadcasting kit. Should I get this? And I was like, yeah, 100%. Because like he does like online teaching. Yeah. And I was like, you should be able to write this off for taxes. He's like, we don't get that deduction, bro. And I was like, the teachers don't get to write off like the homeschooling electronic stuff as a deduction. That's ridiculous. So
that's incredible. I can't believe it. Like for me, since I've been... so that's an interesting thing. Damn, we're getting super off track, but a lot of the times I've been told that you have to like your job actually has to list you as a work from home worker. Yeah. So the teachers aren't listed like that. It's just you have to do what you have to do. So that's why they're getting screwed. So interesting point. All right. No, that's a decent point.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
And so from that, when we're on the way home, I started talking to him about, I was like, yeah. So I told him this as a joke, but like he just kind of like took it 100% seriously. Where I was like, yeah, I'm starting a dream board at home of like, because I was like, everything's closed out. So I was like, I want to have like an indoor swimming pool. So I've been looking at like $1 million houses and like trying to decide which one I want to move into. And so like I sent him like a link to like this one that I was looking at. Yeah. And I was like, it's beautiful. It has like a indoor swimming pool, a sauna, a bar, a weight room. I was like, this is great. And it's only $1.6 million.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. And I was like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, it's not like I'm like like if you look at like where I'm at now, like in a really nice condo, it's like it's not like a huge leap. It's more like a few steps, you know.
A few big steps because it's $1.6 million, really.
Yeah, but it's not like, oh, you're shooting like a moonshot. It's like, you know, like you in your golden years, you could probably figure out something like with that. Like it's not probably the best investment, but not horrible. You could do worse things with your money, like when you're
Then buy a house, yeah.
yeah, then buy like
Yeah.
a house to live in, like that has all the amenities you'd ever want.
It's like house, black tar. You know,
And so then
sure.
I told him, I was like, yeah, so like, you know, when the podcast takes off with me and Mr. Gimp, you know, if I'm making like an extra like 20, 40 G's a year, maybe even 60, I was like, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And my bro was like, the taxes on this house are 17 grand, bro. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. This is fine.
Damn, dude, just shooting you down before you even get the dream started. Shit. That's awesome. All right, so we were talking about
So
fighting games.
Boards.
Yes, have your dream boards, everybody. We were talking about Ready to Rumble boxing, fighting game 90s, and 90s arcade fighters, and the topic at hand, arena shooters. Chip, did you want to start us off on that? Because just for the
so I feel
audience,
like where we left off was like Cliffy B, Cliff Blazinski. He started at Unreal, and he worked on a bunch of various like small projects. He kind of got his claim to fame being like a young programmer. He worked on like
Jazz Jackrabbit.
Yeah, Jazz Jackrabbit. I was just gonna say some platformer that everybody
knows. Yeah. No, I love Jazz Jackrabbit.
So like he kind of cut his teeth on that, got work at Unreal, and then like kind of rode that wave. He's responsible for like things like Gears of War and like the whole creative direction of that game.
Yep.
But like he kind of like was constantly like trying to be like that 90s edgelord throughout the night.
I think he just was, you know? I don't think he was trying to be. I think that's his personality.
I don't like, so it's hard to separate, right? Like, so what's marketing, what's hype, what's the real person? And so like, I kind of look at like anytime somebody's in front of like a TV or a microphone, they're putting on a bit of a persona.
Sure.
For like, and so like a lot of that stuff was to sell units, I feel, but like, who knows? Yeah. And it's even harder to tell now that he doesn't have like a product to sell, and like he's still kind of being like, you know, trying to get headlines and stuff for himself.
Like a voice, yeah.
Real. They started like trying to sell console units with Gears of War for like Xboxes. So he's like, "Oh, PCs are garbage. They're terrible for shooters and stuff. You're just like you're living in your mom's basement if you're on the PC right now." Like this kind of stuff. Like I don't have the exact quotes. I'm sure we could find them, but like who cares? It was It was in that vein. So he does Gears of War. Sells, I believe, gets bought out like for Unreal because Unreal got sold to Tencent, I believe, where they own the majority of the company.
Thought it was a 30% share because of the but anyway, yeah, I think it's semantics at that point. But yeah,
they got bought out basically by
Epic.
Huge.
Yeah,
Epic Games got bought out by, and part of that is the Unreal Engine, and they're big franchises like Unreal Tournament and Gears of War, this sort of stuff, and those are like kind of sub studios. They also brought Fortnite to you, the children.
Yes.
They probably know more for that now.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, because I think Unreal doesn't get the credit it deserves. But the engine itself is called Unreal, so I guess I should take some stock into that. But go on.
So then after he left there, he was like, I'm going to start my own studio. I'm going to put like the creators up front.
Boss Key
Productions. And I like them. I like the studio. I like the concept behind it. I like promoting the creators. But like he tried to, like they always tell you when you start making a video game, never make an MMO RPG. Like it's going to be like, you're going to want to make an MMO RPG. Don't do it. I would go one step further and be like, don't make an always online
competitive shooter
game.
without.
Yeah. And like, that's kind of what he did. So he made an online competitive shooter that he charged money for up front. So it wasn't even like a free to play, which is what a lot of people were like, hey man, if you're putting this product in the market right now, it needs to be free to play to be able to compete, because it's kind of like a chicken egg situation where you need a dedicated fan base there that can find matches so you have your matchmaking. So they buy stuff from you. And so they ended up having to cut a deal with a publisher because he went to like all the big names and he was like, I got the next. So this is like kind of his other thing. His big boy was like, I got the next $1 billion franchise here for you. And it's like when you that was his marketing material, his marketing package, if you will.
Yep.
Where like, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Where it's like, bro, you can't just say you got $1 billion idea. Like, there's no such thing as the idea guy. There's no such thing as like the $1 billion idea. Like,
let me ask you a
you either
question
make it
though.
$1 billion. Yeah.
With Cliffy B, and I'll get to it when I'm talking about this, but the guy worked on Unreal Tournament. He worked on the original Unreal, then the Unreal Tournament series. He gave us Gears of War, was the creative director for that. 3 phenomenal games under his watch. I would argue, yeah, I love Jazz Jackrabbit. So it could be argued that this man at that point in his career was making $1 billion ideas. Like I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he goes, this is the next $1 billion idea. And I have a lot about why Lawbreakers failed, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so the man is only spinning gold records every day, stepping out, spinning. He's taking any hay you throw at him and spinning it into gold. Like, so that's one of the backdrops to this you have to understand. So he starts up Bosky. So I'm saying, like, from here's kind of like where things start falling apart.
Sure.
And like where the naysayers are like just kind of like, hey man, you have to launch free to play in this environment. Like, you're competing with like too many really big games right now. Like, at that point, Fortnite had hit, Overwatch had hit, so that was already like, and like their Overwatch costs money. I think it's like a $50 or $60 product at the time. I think now it's dropped to a $40 product or 30. Yeah. So it's not like being like, oh, charging like, but like they had already had the install base is what people are looking at, and it's kind of dumb to say, to be like, oh, people can't play more than one game at a time or couldn't own both, like,
yep.
It's not, so it's like, you're like, all right, you're just being negative to be negative, but it's like, you have to understand like the entire landscape at the time. And so he launches this game, and it does okay. Nothing great, nothing bad. But then like after like that initial launch window, it like drops off. Nobody can find matches. Mm-hmm. There's a couple like netcode problems. There was a lot of like free to play stuff creeping in, and people are like, "What the hell, bro? I paid money for this game. Why am I having boxes or cosmetics?" And they also felt that there wasn't enough game in there for the price. Where it felt like a early access style game where it's like you got like 5-6 characters in here, and you have like a handful of skins, and they're like, "Well, there's more content coming. We'll have like seasonal updates and stuff." And we're like, "Bro, like you get all your competitors have twice as much stuff on their launch." So that was the other part of this, is the reason they had to launch for a price was cut a backroom deal with a publisher that said like they have to charge money up front, and after a certain amount of time, they get hold of the IP. So he's basically betting big on this idea, and he's like, this is going to be a huge success, and if it's not, I'm going to lose my IP, my $1 billion IP, and I'm going to probably have to close my studio. And so, go ahead, Gimpy, from there.
Yeah, so I will say, so the biggest problem with Lawbreakers, I think you hit some things on. I was one of the people who bought Lawbreakers, actually, was participated in a lot of the betas and everything else, and our mutual buddy, Mr. Butterball, played one of the free weekends with me. The problem, and I thought, actually, it's interesting you said netcode issues, because I don't remember any netcode issues, just because I didn't play it launch weekend. I played it the weekend after, and it was smooth as butter. The biggest problem with it is it was marketed as a hero shooter when it wasn't. It was anything but. Overwatch took the FPS community by storm, where Overwatch was meant to compete directly with TFT, or Team Fortress 2, excuse me. And Lawbreakers comes out, and they market their heroes excessively instead of the game as a whole. And Overwatch worked because it catered more to casual people as a nice base for FPSs. But you had things from MOBAs like ults, like queued up abilities on cooldown, and the aiming requirement in Overwatch. While there, I would die on this hill saying that it's way easier with its movement speed and other just game qualities to be good at aiming in Overwatch versus something like Quake or Unreal. Lawbreakers brought that Quake / Unreal feel to a team-based environment, and its big hook was its movement mechanics, and it had each map had a center area that was low gravity or no gravity, excuse me, and you could propel yourself by shooting like a machine gun in the opposite direction, and then just you're floating through. So see, and I think the low grav concept was cool on paper, and even the first time you do it in game, it's cool. But actually playing it, it seemed like a gimmick, and for the most part, everyone avoided that middle area because there was no point. It was the fastest way from point A to point B, but you could easily get to these points by like rocket jumping over things like that.
It's also like you're exposing yourself to the fastest way to die too on those maps.
Exactly.
And like really feel defenseless. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah. And the big problem with the game is, you're right, Overwatch came out I want to say it was 2 months before. Everybody reading can fact check me.
Quickly stick a pin in it real quick and talk about movement as well.
Yeah.
I think this was another problem with the game, is it relied a lot on like jetpack and movement on the Z, and like no games do that. So You're literally fighting against everybody's programming, for better or worse, of like how to move a character in 3-dimensional space since the dawn of FPS. So like you could say like, you know, revolutionary maybe gameplay in Bosky Productions game. Sure. But it's also super fucking frustrating. So like you're used to like 60 POV where you're looking ahead, and like you're scanning your horizon, and you're usually scanning like head height. You're clicking heads. When you add in like a Z movement, you now like have created not like 60 FPS like or like 60 POV, but like you've created like 480 like points like horizon to get hit from. Yeah. So like you've opened yourself up to so much more like problems that you have to be scanning and aware of, that it just feels frustrating. I feel like in any game, like even like a game like Overwatch where you have like a hero like Pharaoh who can fly, nothing feels more frustrating than getting like a rocket out of nowhere and you're like, what is this bullshit? Like so imagine like fighting a map full of pharaohs and like at any point somebody could be anywhere around you, above you, below you, off the map, and then come up and then kill you. And it's cool if you like have that skill play to like jump off of like a boost, slide in, come up, and then like, you know, start gunning people. It feels amazing. But it feels horrible for the person like getting like gunned out of nowhere. They're like, what is this? Where am I getting hit from? I don't understand. So I would say like it's almost like ahead of its time, the game, with that kind of movement.
I agree. You mentioned like I think the field of view kind of standard now for across consoles. It starts at 90 now. I typically will play at 110 in most of my games. And interesting you said that about like the verticality of it, because
this was my theory behind it. From like because I watched this game launch. I didn't play the game, I didn't buy it like you, but I loved the idea of like Bosky Productions. So I watched like all of their YouTube videos, all of their live streams. And like, I don't know, just I enjoyed the idea of like being like the creator as like somebody who gets treated with a little bit more respect and like zeitgeist, and like because they're doing a lot of work, and like there's a lot of really talented people at that studio. Yeah,
I agree. I'll touch on their second game actually a little bit, just to get one more thing in with.
So we talked about movement, and then you were talking about Overwatch was also out at that point.
Yeah, and Overwatch had an incredible marketing campaign, incredible characters, and Blizzard's CG and their storytelling with it. That like just marketing onslaught. There's a saying.
If Cliffy B had the $1 billion IP, Blizzard had the $1 billion to put after an IP and like build up a game. So
Yes. It
marketing works.
was
It's effective, man.
yeah, it was Nexon money versus Activision Blizzard money is what it was.
Yeah.
So, but also Lawbreakers had a higher skill floor, also a higher skill ceiling. So you start like Overwatch, you could just jump in Joe Schmo, like play Mercy and actually contribute to your team. You're not doing that in Lawbreakers. You're gonna get your ass handed to you. And it was catered to the hardcore FPS crowd. Unfortunately, I consider myself like a hardcore like arcade FPS guy, but outside of like Team Fortress, I'm more playing like free for all stuff than I am team oriented stuff.
I would say I'd probably fall more into the hardcore, and
Mm.
I would say at that point, like me and my hardcore buddies were all playing Fortnite to beat up children, and it felt really good. You're like, oh, whooping these kids' butts, dude. Like like it's not even fair. Like,
yeah.
And then like I feel like it got a little bit of our own sauce thrown back on us when they introduced like controller support and stuff. So they had like aim assist.
Yeah.
Because like our thing was like we'll take anybody like at a mid or a long range fight and just destroy them because we're better at clicking heads. And now suddenly like you have aim assist and like they're better at clicking or just as equally good at clicking heads.
Yeah. That's interesting. More on that later. But I think that Lawbreakers was a fantastic idea that just came out at the wrong time.
Do you think it was a $1 billion idea?
I think it was. None of the characters are really memorable. That's the problem. With a team-based, like, I don't want to call it a hero shooter because it wasn't, but it definitely had characterization. So just for the sake of argument, I'll call it a hero shooter. You need to market the characters and
the heroes
a little better. Yeah, the heroes a little better. There's no one to really latch on in Lawbreakers. And outside of like the middle area being kind of useless for the no grab area, the CTF in that game was very well. It was like a bomb thing, but like felt kind of like CTF. Was very fun. And as far as you said, was like people don't play games; they're not used to being vertical. If you've ever played Star Siege Tribes 2 especially, or Tribes, any of the Tribe series, the jetpacking, sliding, like glitches that became part of the series for movement is huge. And that game, like, it has projectile based weapons, like a spin disc, and you're like sniping people across, and then they're like skiing and just flying up, and then it's. If you've never played Tribes, Tribes 2 still has a huge community. Tribes 1 still has a community as well. It's free. Download it, play it, and check it out because it's one of those games where there is nothing else like it. And the skill, like I said, it's kind of like Lawbreakers, where the skill floor is very high, and the skill ceiling is even higher than that. So you're gonna get your ass handed to you, and but once you learn it, you'll always crave that style. And I think Lawbreakers was kind of on that. Movement. Yeah, and like Descent, 6 Degrees of Freedom is what that game was based on. It's a spaceship kind of shooter. It's like a FPS with like full motion. That came out in like 95, 96.
Make like a generic, heavily inspired by that.
Yeah.
You need like streams it on Twitch, like trying to make it, but
no, I get it. So there's a market for it, but the market is incredibly small.
To like hop off of your conversation, like I feel the market went to for that kind of freedom of movement, like the nerf down, like hit you in the kneecap version of that, and that's Apex Legends. And there was like another one called like a Ring of Asylum, I believe.
Ring of Elysium, yeah.
Ring of Elysium, yeah, where you could like hit like a parachute or something, a hang glider, like from anywhere to like any other point in the map. Yep. And in Apex Legends, they just have like zip lines everywhere.
Yeah.
And then they also have like jump shoots, but they like clearly show you where somebody is by like having long trails behind them and stuff, where it's like they know you're not ever really scanning the horizon watching for these things. And like even when I end up playing like Apex Legends now and then with like my buddies, I'm like, oh, there's somebody coming in east above us, and like they will keep going this direction. I'm like staying with them, and they're like, where did these people come from? I don't understand. I'm like, I literally just told you above us east.
Yeah.
Like why would you keep and then like I'll like ask them like after we got like pancaked in from like every side, I'm like, so what was your thinking like leading us into that area? And they're like, I don't know. They couldn't tell you, right? Because they're just not thinking like above us, like that's a possibility at all times.
Yep.
And it's weird because you have to play like extra defensively when you have like an open map like type of situation. Where I feel like that style, like sliding, crouching, jumping, and like gliding or jetpacking, works better in like a closed arena battle format where like that can happen, but there's enough closed areas and then there's enough open areas where you can start scanning those areas and you have like a better sense of like when you're the risk reward where you're like, I understand the risk of going out into an open area and I understand like the rewards that I can get from like taking advantage of like those areas as well. Like you're saying, it's just like it puts to a higher like ceiling of skill level for like those games. And I feel like, again, it's just so ahead of its time that like now games are like finally catching up, but it's like a half step to where they should be for like that feeling of movement. Or like Apex, it feels super clunky, the movement in it. And then like any like skill thing that they had bunny hopping in there and they took it out because they're like, oh, that's too much of a skill gap for play. And it's like, this has been around since like Quake, dude. Like you can't be like, oh, this is going to add a huge gap. Like you should be rewarding skill play, but everywhere that there's skill play in that game, they're trying to get rid of because it hurts the middle. And that's where like everybody's trying to get to.
Yeah.
And that's, I think almost like a fundamental problem is that Cliffy doesn't understand that's where the $1 billion like franchises are. It's like hitting like the milk toast, like boring, nothing. You're painting in all the lines and in all the colors. Like,
that's true. With Apex, I think as far as like BRs go, it has the best feeling movement. However, Respawn made Titanfall. Titanfall 2 has the best movement in any modern FPS sans Lawbreakers. In recent memory, and Titanfall 2 didn't like it didn't sell what it should have sold. The single player campaign was phenomenal. The multiplayer was super fun. It was really good. It just, for whatever reason, EA chose to shoot itself in the foot by launching it along with Battlefield 1, like a week apart. Like, what the hell are you doing, EA? Like, and then Titanfall 1, it was a launch title for the Xbox One, and I think that, and it launched like premature. It was just multiplayer only, so people who played it liked it, but you had no single player content to go in. And so I feel like Respawn has gotten the short end of the stick. So I'm so happy that Apex is found their way. And while I have some problems with its movement system because coming from Titanfall 2, I want to do certain things that you just can't do in Apex because the movement system's slightly different, even though it's the same world. But as far as like,
it just feels a little clunky. It's just weird. Like you'll be running and feeling good, and all of a sudden you're like, why was this the decision here?
However, if you've played Ubisoft's Hyperscape, that movement's clunky as hell. It tries its best to be Apex Legends and fails, stumbles out of the door, and just falls flat on its face. So that's, there's something to be said with that. So right now, I think in the BR space, what is it? Fortnite, PUBG, Apex, because PUBG kind of is having a resurgence. It seems. Some people say it never fell off, but
I would say like looking like with no real insider information or anything. I would say from the outside looking in, EA as a publisher seems incredibly like predatory and almost
100%.
like setting up some of their studios for failure.
100%. They just want the IP. Bullfrog Entertainment.
Yeah, they want control of the IP, but they also want to bankrupt the studios that they like publish almost actively. Just from the outside looking in, where it's like, why would they release like 2 of their big tentpole releases like in like a couple of weeks span and stuff? And it's like, well, they put a lot of like bonuses, studio things like on like Metacritic scores, on like user acquisition, and like a lot of it's like, well, you didn't make your numbers. Sorry, looks like we can't pay you. And it's like we were really counting on like that money to like keep our studio going.
So EA is responsible for the death of Bullfrog. I want to say Black Isle. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments here. and they're actively killing BioWare as we speak.
Sure.
And the guys who made Command and Conquer, the original Westwood. How could I even forget that? Westwood is probably the premier RTS development studio. Before EA got his claws into it, they were neck and neck fighting Blizzard. Blizzard had Warcraft and StarCraft. Westwood had Command and Conquer. I believe they worked on Dune as well, which kind of is the granddaddy of modern RTSs. So you take a studio of that caliber.
I want to say that's when the studio split, when they became Westwood and Westwood Studio West.
Yeah.
It's like half of them went down to Cali and the other half like stayed up in Nevada.
Yep. So EA has time and time again bought these studios that have made amazing things. Go, hey, you can keep making those amazing things. We'll pump money into it, and you don't have to worry about marketing. But then all these studios died like 3 to 5 years after they get acquired by EA. That's why
they look at it as like a factory almost. Like they want a video game assembly line, and they don't want you to like be creative or do anything. They just want the same thing. They want widgets. And like you can look at like Call of Duty with that, where they're like, they run a studio into the ground and they're like, hey, we're still making money on this, but the product isn't where it needs to be. And they're like, what's going down? They're like, well, it takes 3 years to make like a good quality game. And they're like, okay, but we want a Call of Duty every year, so we're gonna put 3 studios on it and like have them alternate. It's like every other year, like some different studios like doing a Call of Duty game, and you're like, but why though?
Well, Activision and EA are having a fight amongst themselves to be the most evil publisher that can be. When Bungie took that Activision money and joined them after they became independent again after the Halo series was complete under their watch, and some people branched off into 343. They're like, well, we want to make this other game called Destiny. I remember seeing the concept, being super pumped for it. They're like, hey, we're joining Activision. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? They're like, no, I know what you're thinking. No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And then turns out 3 years later, Activision completely like just screws them over. And Bungie, at least at that point, had the wherewithal to get out, get their IP and get the hell out. A part of their initial deal was to keep their IP, even if they decide to leave. So that was like the only good thing.
That was like an entire like court battle just for that as well.
Yeah.
And like there's like they're doing things where like they were suing like their musicians and stuff. Like they're trying to fire like the top people like in their music. Like they made them switch engines at one point. They're like, you have to switch everything over to this like other engine. Felt like they're actively trying to stifle their potential for success. Like
Meanwhile, like at that point, games as a service really kicked off and has been lucrative for publishers. So they're pushing games like that. I, for one, don't care for those types of games. So for me, as like a guy who really loves Quake, Unreal, going out, Painkiller, things like that, there's been less and less things for me to actively play, and it sucks. Like people go, Destiny multiplayer, it's great. I'm like, no, it's just something's off about it. And then they're like, you get these abilities. I'm like, I don't want abilities. I just want to have to be able to like rocket jump and shoot you in the head.
I played the multiplayer in Destiny 2 with like a bunch of buddies. Mm-hmm. And for me, I've always felt like video games are mostly just like a chat interface for my friends. Like we're going to have a good time no matter what game we're playing.
Yeah.
And we had a really good time with Destiny 2, but we played all the content that was because it was on sale, like the game for like basically free. It was like $3 or $4. I'm like, oh, we'll pick up Destiny. And then we hit like the paywall. They're like, oh, if you want more Destiny, you have to pay more.
Like, the expansion.
We're good. Thank you, though. And there wasn't a lot to do, and we only played for like 8 hours. We went to like the main story mode, and then like we start grinding out like a little bit of like this and that for like gear, and we're like, there's nothing left to do. Like everything was set up in like that scummy, like, oh, you have to wait 12 hours for this to reset. You have to wait 4 hours for this to reset. Oh, you need this kind of currency. You need to wait 2 hours, and we'll like, give you. Oh, if you want some of this, you have to pay us cash. And I was like, we're good. Thank you, though. Like it was cool. Like you have a fun game here, but
that's the problem with the games as a service. All of them feel incomplete to me. I feel storytelling suffers because of it. My biggest problem with Destiny 1 which I did the beta for, and coming off of like, as you know, I did some Halo competitively and stuff. Coming off of like that scene, I'm like, okay, Bungie's new stuff. I'm ready to go. The enemies were bullet sponges. I forget what their like deathmatch mode is called, but that did not feel good at all. And Bungie had like this motto of like, I think it's like 3 seconds of fun or 7 seconds of fun, something like that, where if you're not having
a full game,
yeah, where if you're not having fun in that amount of time, we failed you. They failed the shit out of me. I mean, like, I'm like not touching out the 10-foot pole. And then with Destiny's, perceived success, even though Destiny 1 didn't meet what they wanted, Destiny 2 seems to be doing very well. It's kind of like the model for games as a service. But you have the Avengers, which feels shoddy and incomplete and lacking content. You have the Division, which took a very interesting sounding Tom Clancy world of a post-coronavirus U.S. and it just has factions fighting over like this state. Just again, like bullet spongy enemies at the higher levels. The multiplayer mode that isn't fleshed out and you're playing on the one map is like my other big gripe. And then you're right, like the scummy practices of you don't have the expansion, so you're capped here, which is very MMO-ish, and I get, but I also don't like MMOs. So like my shooter games going in and compressed into this worries me for the future. So there's been more and more games, and they're popular, which is my problem. Which is why last pod I said
about Cyberpunk. It felt very MMO.
Yeah. Yeah, last pod I mentioned that my taste in game skews older than what I am. I started off playing Doom on the PC, the original Doom. That's also the first game I ever played online. Instead of getting an allowance, I told my dad that I'll do all my chores, just pay for DwangoNet. And
do I have to play Doom Eternal now? Is this where this is all going? Or are you just trying to guilt me into finally playing like Doom Eternal?
Doom Eternal was fantastic.
When is it going to come up on the pod?
No, it's not. It's a good backdoor though, but no.
Yeah.
But I remember playing it on a 28.8 kilobaud modem, right? I remember upgrading to a 56K modem and going, "Holy crap, this is amazing!" I remember Quake coming out and Quake World finally becoming a thing, so you could like connect easier to other people. I was, like 7, 8 years old, learning how to bunny hop and strafe jump and circle strafe with everyone else. I learned what rocket jumping is, like at the time where people like who's the most famous guy? Fatality, were cutting our teeth and winning all of these like high caliber Quake tournaments. Yeah. That's where my like bread and butter is. So then like the industry like started consoleizing things, and like when GoldenEye was popular on the N64, people were like, yeah, it's the best shooter ever. I get the love for GoldenEye. GoldenEye is a solid console shooter, but keep in mind, at that point, I was playing Unreal Tournament. I was playing Quake 3. Soldier of Fortune.
The same way about Halo 1.
Yeah.
Like, because I was kind of like, oh, we can play against people around the world. This is great. It's on our Xbox. And I'm like, I can play against people. I've been doing that for years, boys. Like,
yeah.
I have this like Unreal on my Dreamcast, like with a keyboard and mouse, dude. Like, I was playing Phantasy Star Online. This is nothing. But,
yeah. Halo. I'll get to Halo in a second, but that's where I was learning arena maps. Like, I will say my favorite map in any game is Rat Race in the original Halo. But before that, Deck 16 in Unreal Tournament, and Quake 3 DM7, whichever one the Keep was. I can't remember the actual name, but the Keep and Quake are my like go-to maps. And the thing with like Quake and Unreal is all of these maps had a soundtrack, So like Deck 16, I can still hear the theme in my head, and I will actually play it in the recording right
with
now.
all the ramp jumps.
With the ramps, yep, ramps jumps. There's a sniper on the mid tower, and then there's and then there's a redeemer up above on the left. So that map features, I believe, near every weapon available in Unreal in one arena map that is, I feel, the perfect size for a 1v1 or up to 16 players just going at it. Absolutely love that map to death. When Unreal Tournament 2003, 2004, Deck 17 is what it was called, and it's spiffied up, and instead of green ooze, it had lava. Whatever, semantics at that point. But nothing was better than that, and even now to this day, Unreal's installed on my computer, and there's a server that has Deck 17 running, and that's the one I always go to. So, yeah, dude. And then around then, gaming started to shift a little bit. CS:GO, or not CS:GO, Counter-Strike 1.6 was the most popular mod in the world. It probably still is, honestly, until Daisy's BR mode, the mod from PlayerUnknown came out. Counter-Strike,
I don't think that game was that popular, so it's easy to have the retrospective about it right now.
Yeah,
but when I heard about it, I think at most at any given time there's 10 to 20,000 people playing it.
Yeah.
And then when H1Z1 spun off from that before PUBG, I remember my buddy, Mr. Butters, he was like, "Oh, this is gonna be huge. This is gonna be the biggest game ever." Yeah. And I was looking at him and I was like, "Bro, I don't think this is gonna be it, but this style of game is going to be it." And I was like, "These bigger companies are gonna come in and eat their lunch." I was like, it's either gonna be Call of Duty or Unreal, or I just named off the 6 big studios. It was Activision, Blizzard. One of these guys is gonna come in and do this exact same thing, and they'll have the biggest game ever. And he's like, "No, man, this is it, dude. H1Z1." And then PUBG comes out, and he's like, "Okay, maybe PUBG is gonna be it." But it took
Fortnite.
7-8 years before Fortnite. So there's a big gap of it's easy to point back and be like, "Oh, this must have been huge at the time." It wasn't. It was it is really hard to find 100 players in a match, and so the wait queues were 7-8 minutes, constantly. So if you didn't have buddies to talk to while you're waiting for matches, it's just tough, man. It's tough to but it's easy to be retrospectively paint oh, this thing's massive, everybody's playing it. It's no, nobody was playing it. It was kind of a word of mouth, oh, you gotta try this out. I think I could always talk about Lineage 2 is one of the best MMORPGs ever. And people are why don't you think it was as big in America as it was in Korea? And I was because it was really badly translated. And to do any of the quests, you had to look up forums or a translation wiki, and everything in that game was hardcore. If you want to talk about Dark Souls, this was a Dark Souls MMORPG. Everything was hard, everything was crazy, everything was a grind, and at any point, anyone else could just run up and kill you and steal your stuff. It wasn't a huge it wasn't a Minecraft or Roblox or something where you drop all your gear when you die, but you had a 1% to 2% chance of dropping something, and it's something you could have spent 2 weeks working for. You could drop your main weapon, and it costs millions of dollars in the game, which is the equivalent of $40 USD. So if you wanted to do the illegal eBay exchange of money, it's about $40 to $1 million in the game, and every weapon in that game after level 20 costs about $1 million. So it's crazy.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. No, that's an interesting point.
In that MMO, because everything cost so much, the risk was so high, and it felt Dark Souls. High risk, high reward. You always felt you're being hunted. You always had to pay attention. Anyone could just run up on you at any moment and just start beating your ass, and try and steal your shit from you. Yeah. So it gave you that feeling of constantly being hunted, and that's what battle royales do. Yeah. You always feel you're hunting or being hunted by human, the deadliest predator of all, humans.
Yeah.
Hunting the biggest game of all, other humans.
Yeah. That's a good point. Where I was going with the initial thing, saying with Counter-Strike, the time to kill was, minuscule compared to Unreal, Quake, all of that. And then started going more realistic, and Counter-Strike, let's face it, is definitely arcadey. No weapons recoil handles like that, no bullet spray handles like that. It's like it's Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike alone. But then that led to the military shooters. Medal of Honor, I'll say, takes the top spot for. For me, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, the mod, was my of choice. To this day, I play that. Shout out to my Wolf ET people, but a big part of the Enemy Territories, like Return to Castle Wolfenstein game, is when you get a headshot. Your helmet, if your helmet's on, it actually absorbs some of that damage. You can actually shoot people's helmets off, and that was the key. Is you'd control your spray pattern, shoot a helmet off, and then you can kill people easier.
Click heads.
Yep. But Medal of Honor is obviously the game to beat. And then from Medal of Honor, we got Call of Duty, where the time to kill is now fucking a breath, and then that just went with the Medal of Honor to Call of Duty was like the peak consoleization started by Halo, showing you that FPSs can work and work very well on console. Obviously, I still prefer Halo because of my background and other things, but consoleization's there. So now I think FPSs are, for me, I'm always searching for something that gives me the same feeling that I had like 15 years ago.
Playing Doom 1?
Not even playing Doom 1. Just learning an arena map, kind of straight just flying around the area, getting 50 kills, calling it a night. Or in Halo, 25 kills, calling it a night.
Have you gotten into any of the battle royales?
The only battle royale I've played them all, and we've played a couple together, but as you know, I'm not. None of them really grab me. The only one that I legitimately was excited to play and continue playing, and people are gonna laugh. Radical Heights by Bosky. By Cliffy B. Ron LaJoy, I believe, was the creative designer of that, who worked at Bosky. Radical Heights combined the arcadiness of like the arena shooters that I wanted. In a third-person mode, it had like a narrator that was like a game show host. It definitely released too early and was like a panic release. The bicycles were fun.
Do you think we're already working on that, like in the wings? There's just something they cobbled together, and
I think it was a cobbled together like proof of concept that they realized that Lawbreakers was failing, and they're like, take that proof of concept and make something quick. So they released it in alpha. Pre-alpha. I played it with a buddy. He also really took a shine to it, and no other battle royale grabbed me like that game did. All the weapons felt great. The different armor types and things, to where you made a point, the last pod of going, they had a golden helmet, so I lost that battle. It was better represented in Radical Heights with the counters because everything was bright and poppy. The map wasn't too obnoxiously big where your downtime was all
if
game.
They wanted to water down Apex. I feel like that's what they need to do. It's like if you have gold armor, make it gold shiny chest plate and a gold. And like even the helmets, I want that Minecraft. Like I can tell what armor you're wearing from like across the map. Where I'm like, is this fight worth taking? Because he has better gear than me. How confident am I in my shots?
Yeah, for sure.
Give me that risk reward up front. But I'm like Radical Heights. I didn't get into it.
But
I felt
you got money, you had to buy weapons at places, kind of like how Apex does it, and Call of Duty Warzone does it as well. Because Fortnite, you just find weapons, right? Is that how it works?
It's RNG, basically fall down. But they always kind of spawn in the same spots, so it's about like understanding like your competitors in the map and like paying attention to like the flight patterns, and like if you want to get high level, like if you want to like pull down the dubs a lot, I would say almost watch how many people are jumping out of the like bus at the start. So like literally count, because there's 100 people. So you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 26, 40, 30. And I'm like, all right, I know there's whatever 20 to 15 people left in this bus, and I know like these 3 possible regions. So the most and like if you're playing with other people, you got to take that into account. Like if I'm playing with like 4 people, I'm like, there's like a 25% chance we could run into another group of 4 players, but I've reduced that down to like an 8% chance. And I know that there's like this many areas. And I know just by looking at the flight pattern and how many people have left, the odds of us running into anybody coming through like these areas. So like there's a huge meta that most people aren't ever going to get into in that game. But like there are ways to skew the odds into your favor, so they may always be in your favor. Hunger Game style.
For sure. But yeah, I actually forget my point with this. But overall, I think that, like, let's talk about Doom Eternal. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's my favorite. It's
sitting in my box. I downloaded it.
Yep. So Doom 2016, amazing. Doom Eternal, amazing. Two, like 1A, 1B. The Doom Eternal, I will say, faltered at one point, and it was a development decision, so I can't fault them because it just doesn't vibe with me. They don't have deathmatch. They don't have team deathmatch for the series that sparked the entire phenomenon. They have a team mode like where it's like 1 versus
studio?
3.
Maybe I'm just being ignorant on it.
Yeah. I mean, they're still in software, but yeah, all the like big players left. And
I watched like I don't know if you watched like the No Clip documentary they did.
Yep.
It didn't seem like there was a ton of people there. It seemed like kind of like they left them and forgot them.
Yeah, but there never was though. Yeah,
they're like. So I feel like that was kind of swinging it all back around to the glue, Cliffy B.
Yeah,
I feel like there's that old school mentality that like plagued id Software. There's like Quake, and then the people who also made Duke Nukem.
3D Realms.
Yeah, 3D Realms. It's that old school mentality of like we need a handful of really good people to make something amazing, but they also like had like infinite crunch, and they were a lot younger, so they didn't have like families or like obligations outside of work. So it was like we'd hang out all day, play video games and work on video games, and it was great. And we'd do it every day for like days at a time. Like we wouldn't even leave the studio. And I think like as the industry is growing up, it's like that's not a sustainable or good business model for creating good product for the creators or the public in general. Like sometimes you like craft like a gold nugget out of it, but also like you end up in like a closed silo where like the product or like the game can suffer a lot for it. And I'm just going to use product and game interchangeably with like for these bigger studios.
It applies to
because at a certain point, like I feel like they're no longer trying to make games; they're trying to make $1 billion they're aiming for a product. So I feel like Cliff had like a really small studio, and it leads to like that sort of echo chamber of ideas where you're like, this is great, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that, and hindsight's 2020, obviously, but if Cliffy decided to, instead of putting this massive push behind like Lawbreakers and competing with like Overwatch as your first game, you're essentially it's your small studio versus Blizzard,
or Radical Heights versus
Fortnite. Yeah,
or PUBG.
Yeah, if they just released it as is, kind of had more of a grassroots kind of campaign, didn't blow their entire budget on marketing for Lawbreakers, stuff like that. And I don't know what the specific schematics are or semantics
I would say like for lessons learned, like practical use case for them, I would say if you start up a studio, what you want to do is make another S corp and then have your IPs owned by that. So
but there's
so like you're not, the studio and the idea are not interconnected. So you're basically doing contract work for the idea. So like this is the way like they do it in like a lot of movie studios and stuff. You're like, why is movie theaters like so weird with their accounting? How come they're always losing money and like their contractors aren't getting paid? This is why. So you can take out loans to this IP and not bet your studio on it over here, and the studio's still getting paid from like this IP. So like what he should have done was like have like this separate entity from them, and then like you can take in partners and other stakeholders into here that are like, okay, I like Radical Heights as an idea, or I like this idea because he had like several like other ideas where he was like throwing stuff up on Twitter, and he's like, what do you guys think about dragons and eggs and bullshit? And everyone's like, this is cool, I guess. He's like, would you consider Kickstarting? And everyone's like, no, Cliffy, no.
I think that running, and I think Cliffy is a great creative mind. I think he his like what's fun to him is also fun to me. So like a lot, whenever he does anything, I take note. Um, but I think running a business and just making games to make games are two different animals.
Yeah.
And I think if he had like a just one person just to focus on the business end of it, just he does nothing but development, kind of like the Hideo Kojima studios. It's like all he does. I believe he has another like person or party of people running the business end of Kojima Productions, and he's the idea man. He does it's what he's good at, and he has people doing business for what they're
he's good at.
At.
Like designing systems, not managing people and books.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's there's different skill sets, and you can be good at both, but like you only have so many hours a day.
Exactly. It's the old business adage of square peg, square hole, round peg, round hole. You got to put people in what they're good in. If Cliffy B being such a creative guy and having such success with his previous projects,
like if I could just have sat down with him before, like, and also like I would say do your market research, like right, like if you're gonna go into any business endeavor, like look at like what are the big names out there, what are they doing, and then I would also say like don't make your first game online. Like don't look for multiplayer, like maybe. And I know like a lot of people will be like, oh, FPS, they need to be online or they're dead on arrival. But I would say if you're charging money for it, like if he had made like a single player narrative game that actually built up like the heroes, I'd be like, okay, these are like the 4 heroes and these are like their story paths. And then like if you sold enough of those copies, then be like, okay, now we can like put in online onto that and then like build it for that. Like, but if like nobody wants this game, like with like the first person driven narrative, and it was like an interesting world and like there's a lot there, but I think they blew all their money on Ice-T, bro. I don't know if you remember this, like Ice-T was like like a lot of
At the end of the day, unfortunately, it was a case of history repeating itself. John Romero is about to make you his bitch. Daikatana, coming soon. I used the name recognition of the developer to push the game, overmarket the game. Cliffy B used name recognition for himself to say it's $1 billion idea. And obviously, it was less than what was offered. I still liked the game, but
like how many people actually care about that, though?
The industry does,
right? But like, I think like just because like, so I do this all the time. Like, I think we've talked about this before. Where like any little niche thing I'm into, like I'll be looking at like 3D modeling and stuff, and I'm like, man, this guy must be like huge on YouTube. And I'll look at the numbers. And I'm like, oh, he has like 50,000 views, which is a lot. But it's not a lot. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, oh, this guy, like he's like the #1 guy at like doing like textures, and like teaching tutorials on like textures, and like he's like 100,000 views, and you're like, holy crap, that's massive. But that's not a lot, right? But like again, you can have like a niche. So like I enjoy like a lot of different independent comic books. And this guy was like, hey, if I just sell 2,000 books a year, like I'm good for a year. Like that's all I need to do. I need to move 2,000 units. And like my margins are such that I'm putting on a premium product where I can do this for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. So he can focus on making like a really good book and not building an audience necessarily. Whereas like if you're trying to like have a studio and like employ a bunch of people, like you have to keep growing it. But it's tough, man. Like it's a competitive market, and I say like when you get into the mindset of like 100,000, 200,000 views, that's a lot. Or like, oh, this like ridiculous clip I put out talking mad stuff about like, oh, eat my butt, Daikatana for life. You're like, oh man, we sold like 2 million magazines. You're like, that's a lot, but how many of that? Like, I think like what they say is like 5% of like whatever you're marketing, like the eyeballs are gonna buy. So whatever, like use easy numbers or whatever, like 10,000. What is that, like 50 people? Like
so that's true.
500 or 5,000. Like that's not a lot. That's not enough to keep your game. Like just being out there being a loudmouth is not enough. But it feels like a lot because like you're saying, like
your
you drive
social circle is big.
And like everything you go to in that industry, everybody knows you, right? Like where like me and you would recognize like Cliff Blazinski walking down the street and we're like, oh shit, Cliffy, what's up? But like he can walk around everywhere. Nobody's gonna like bug him
Yeah,
for the
true.
most.
True. Yeah, it's tough, man. I think like end of the day, you know, even for someone as established as Cliffy B, game development is it's hard. It's hard. Running a business is hard. Um, and I think, like you said, market research, things like that, timing is huge.
But
Doesn't mean don't do
it's
it.
hard.
It just means realize that there's factors out there that are always working against you that you have to overcome.
I don't know. I kind of agree with what you first said though. It's like when you're in the zeitgeist where
Yep.
everywhere you go, everyone knows you, and like all you're doing is taking hay and spinning it into gold. I think it's like if somebody like me or you be like, hey man, you might want to do your market research. Just like, okay, dude, yeah, I'll get right on that, asshole.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you probably don't want to have this always online experience, but like, bro, I'm fucking Cliffy B. Like I'm making all my games are online and they're all amazing, bro. Like I don't know if you've heard of a little game called Unreal or maybe Gears of War. You probably heard of it. You might have seen like a bro with a tattoo of my skulls on their arms, just like hanging out.
For sure.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm fucking awesome, and I'm awesome at making games. And it's like, okay, that's fair, but maybe like don't tie your IP to your studio, and like that way you can take it. Bro, it's fine. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be a big success. Also, I'm a personal millionaire, so whatever. Like at the end of the day, I'm not losing a lot of sleep over it. And it's like you're saying, it's like it felt more like a hobby / pet project for him than like a serious business endeavor from the jump. And like it felt like he was kind of like trying to hold a mirror to the industry as a whole and be like, you need to promote your creative talent more than what you're doing, and you're treating a lot of people like shit, and you don't have to do that to make good games. So I felt like for that, the message was received only if you're successful, right?
That's an interesting take.
That's how I felt about just like the way he set up the studio, the way he was promoting it, the live streams they were doing. Like, it definitely feels like that from an outside perspective, like what he was trying to do.
I think what he experienced the first time is what a lot of upstart game developers are experiencing. So looking at him, Jazz Jackrabbit 1 and 2, he was a Nintendo like gaming world champion. That was like his first like big deal. To Unreal, he was very young. It was success after success after success. He's never truly fallen on his face, and unfortunately, Boss Key was the first time he fell on his face, and he had to learn how to handle it, which is what a lot of people learned, years ago.
Yeah,
so
and he's not taking it very well.
He's not taking it very well, but I wouldn't either, and I don't think any any person would. I think that like I follow him on Twitter. I've tweeted at him before.
Is he blaming racist right now for like the game failing?
No, he's not.
I swear, bro. Like, look at
he's more focused on just like writing his memoir and telling his story from everything else, which I will definitely purchase that when it's out and read it because
trying to blame Donald Trump and shit, dude. Like it was weird.
There's
like,
a lot.
Racist. That's why my game failed. It was too woke for him. It's like, okay, man.
Oh, that was a few months ago. Yeah. I won't get into the thing because I think a lot of it too is like media, drumming up media to get eyes on him and go, oh, by the way, I'm making a memoir. Which I don't fault him for. I think a lot of people do it, but literally every personality of any clout does it. Yeah. So you just have to sift through the bullshit. We're getting close to the time to end it here.
What?
And I know, it just flies by. So I just want to end it.
I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
I know, I could talk about this for literally 12 hours, dude. But I do want to touch on if you're playing anything this week.
Snaps. Yeah. Real quick, again, for my conclusion on all that is just market research, start small. Also, don't stay away from online for your first game. It's going to be a headache. And I would say have a small practical experience. And I don't care if you've been in the game 50 years, 10 years, or 4 months. I would say also focus on, like, for your first game, you probably want a single screen game. Like, if you could do that, launch that. And just to get your feet wet, to get to, like, know all the players, their strengths and weaknesses on your team. Do that, launch it. Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be successful, but you should work on that. Condense a good experience, and then like go from that, and then like you can even have like your core concepts in that, and then like expand that, like have it be modular, so all your systems are modular. Like so, everything we learned from the single screen experience, kind of going on the whatever 3-4-3 of like, can we find the 3 seconds of fun and then expand that out?
Yeah.
I'd say I heard people. I learned some new acronyms listening to some people. CCC, it's camera controller character.
Okay. Yep.
So build your camera controller character, and then USP was it a unique selling point? Have you so camera controller character, unique selling point, and then MVP, baby, minimum viable product.
Viable product. Yep.
So like I would say like those
the best business class stuff right there.
Yeah. Business 101, Cliffy B. Do those 6 things first, and like have fun. You have any like closing thoughts on that?
I think the closing thought too is
like lessons you could learn looking in
is no matter how big you think you are,
stay humble.
Yeah, exactly. Cliffy B didn't stay humble. John Romero did not stay humble. At the end of the day, you're launching a new IP. You're reintroducing yourself to the world. So just, I think if you come out with your best foot forward, and I believe like Kojima does, you for every game, even if it was a new Metal Gear, he reintroduces himself to the world. And
like,
I think we can
like
all
Kojima's game, like Death Stranding, like
that
didn't sell well, but it sold good.
Yeah.
It sold like 100,000 units. Like it's not a Metal Gear, right? But it was never meant to be that, and he knew, and so he set his studio expectations for that. Where he's like, I know we're coming off a really hot property, but like I want to start a studio. I want to like have again. He stay away from like online. It was a unique experience. It was interesting controls, camera, and character. And he played to his studio strengths.
Yeah. So I think that
put your best foot forward.
Best foot forward. Reintroduce yourself with each new product, and just see where the world takes you from there. Just kind of stay humble.
So what I've been playing, eh?
Yeah. So let's just end it on what we're playing. I will let you go first because I keep
playing Minecraft, man. I just finally got into it.
A little back end. How long has Minecraft been out?
Years. I think it came out in like 2012.
Yeah,
2014, something like that.
Well, welcome to Minecraft, Chip. Are you enjoying it?
It's okay. I don't know. I'm playing with a bunch of people, and like I said, it's like a chat interface, and I'm having a lot of fun with my buddies.
Are you doing creative or survival?
I think it's survival. We're like on a private server. We built out a base, and I made a minecart that goes and gives a tour of the base. Yep. So we put glass ceilings in all of our rooms, so we can like see everybody's rooms as we tour through the base.
Yep.
It's okay. It's not great. It's not bad.
Hey, Minecraft is definitely a social thing.
Like it seems like if you have people to play with, it's all right.
Yeah, even if you don't, like if you enjoy the creative aspect, like a lot of people like The Sims just to build houses, and that's all they would do is just build houses and stuff like that.
See,
Minecraft, some people just build fucking monuments, and so there's some Minecraft artists that get paid for that.
Yeah, and like for me, it's like somebody I'm, venture to call myself like a 3D artist where I can make stuff in like, 3D applications. Like I don't see the point in it, where it's like, why would I use like really bad tools for like creating something when I can use like a really good tool for like the same amount of time, make something really good and useful. Like if I want to make like a gun model or something, like I don't know, it's got me thinking about voxels and stuff, and I've been thinking about it for a while. Like the blocky aesthetic, where I wanted to make like a side-scrolling mech game, like in that like I saw somebody who like had like a 3D model pack on like itch.io where they're like, oh, buy these 3D models, and I didn't do it, but I was like, that looks cool, and like they kind of made like the 3D mechs. I was like, I could do that. I could make some 3D mechs and have them look voxely and have them like side-scrolling and blowing up stuff.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Kind of like a cross between like a what the heck's that game? The shooting game, Gradius?
Yeah.
No, R-Type. That's what I'm thinking of. The cross between R-Type.
Depends on if you have the level that can kill you or just alien spawning. Yeah.
I'm thinking like R-Type 2 and like Metroid, like some sort of mech style adventure game like that.
Okay. It's cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know. What have you been playing, man?
I started a playthrough of Cyber Shadow this week. It was a game that's been in development for, I feel like it's been maybe a decade. It's like at least 6-7 years, something like that. It was made on the Construct 2 game engine, which is actually what I first made games with. So it was amazing to see a project of that caliber come out. Published by Yacht Club Games, who made the amazing Shovel Knight game. So they believed in the project enough to put their backing behind it, put the marketing behind it, and it was made by one man. I think he licensed music out, and I think he did the animation someplace else, but pure development, pure code, pure art was all him. Mm-hmm. So far I'm enjoying it. And I think people who've seen my other works and you see the big ass fucking sticker behind me of Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden, you can kind of figure one of my favorite games of all time. And that includes the next series.
I thought Ninja Theory made Ninja Gaiden.
No, that's not weird. I get it. I've had people say that too. But so far it's very fun. I'm near the end of the game right now. I'm sure next week I'll have my full thoughts on it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And like I said, I beat Cuphead last week, so I'm really enjoying these retro kind of revival kind of projects right now. I don't know what I'll tackle after Cyber Shadow. Maybe Shovel Knight, because I've never actually beaten the series yet, so I'll probably do that. But right now, I'd give out of a 10 from where I am in the game. I just got the dash, for those of you who've played it. Right now, it's about a 7 out of 10 for me, which I think is really good. It has the potential to go to an 8 or a 9, coming off of like some of the movement is just like the base movement's a tad slow for my personal liking, which is why we'll never reach the full 10. And the music hasn't been super memorable. It's good. It's just I'm not humming the tunes afterwards. But overall, it's $20. Solid ass game. I'm really enjoying it. We'll see how I feel after I, conquer the final boss.
I felt that exact same way about Cave Story.
Oh, I loved Cave Story to death.
The movement was like a tad slow for me. Like basically everything you just said you applied to me for Cave Story.
Really? Then, was this the Cave Story Plus or the original?
I think it was Plus.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I did not enjoy it as much as other people.
Oh,
and also, I played it and I basically did like an Iron Man challenge on myself because I didn't understand the game. I didn't know you could shoot up or diagonally for like the first 3/4 of the game. And I'm proud to say you can be the first 3/4 of the game without shooting up or diagonally. But you finally get to the point, like 3/4 of the way in, where like you have to shoot something diagonally. Yeah. And like I was like trying to do like a weird trick jump to like try and shoot it. I was like, I don't understand why I can't do it. And then I was just like pointed up and I was like, son of a bitch. Like, I can't believe this. I give awesome. Minecraft 10 out of 10.
Yeah. No, it definitely deserves it. It's so
personally,
moddable
like
and expandable.
Personally, it's like a 4 out of 10 for me. But my buddies are really enjoying it and they're really expressing like their creativity. And they're really like having a great time with it. So I see the appeal for it. Like if you don't have like a creative outlet, like if you don't paint or have something, it seems like personal expression. Because it's, you would think like unlimited possibilities would allow you to be more creative, but it's usually the opposite. When you give yourself huge constraints, you usually have the most creative output. And I'd say like Minecraft really has you like constrained and locked in a box and like thinking like always that next thing of like, oh, I need this for this now. And like, oh, I want this to look like that. And it seems like really good for like challenging how you think about things creatively. But like if you like do that already and like your whole thing is like solving problems, which is like any creative endeavor is just like solving unique challenges and problems constantly. Like my head's already like working like, like that 24/7. So I'm just like, whatever. Like it's, I could see that, like to me, it's like a mining simulator where like I enjoy clicking the blocks the most so far and setting up mine carts.
Yeah. Hey man, Minecraft has so many different things that everyone can find something to like about it.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
So I love it. All right, man. Well, that's the pod, everybody. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Pod was brought to you by our sponsor, The Sun. All praise the Sun.
Yeah. We saw it completely just mask chip in this nice like
I have like a half a tan.
Yeah. Yeah. So see you guys next week. And for Chipmunk and Mr. Gimpy, see you later. Take care, everybody.